All right, everybody. This is another episode of Cerberus Sports Talk. We are doing Niners tonight with Ryu Sunil. But before we get started, some of the topics we're going to be talking about is Wagner stays in the NFC West. Juice is fully stocked. Ross Dwelly back on the team. Juwan Jennings and some quarterback questions. Let's get it started. All right, so Neil, what's going on, my man? Welcome in.
Living the dream, my friend. Thank you so much for having me on, man. I always have a good time working with you, man. So I appreciate the offer.
Yeah, living La Vida Loca right now. It was funny. We were doing the intro video right there, and I looked over the TV because my LA Kings are playing. We just scored, so I got the little fist bump in there. Go up 1-0. I like it, man. How's life been?
Life's good, man. Just out here. I just posted up a picture. I went to Costco to fill up my car. It cost $106, man. I was like, my whole plans changed. I had plans to like go grocery shopping, do this, do that. And I was like, I'm going home and just get a Netflix and chill till I have to go on to Randon's show because that got me depressed.
You're like, is Top Ramen still a thing? Like, how much sodium is too much sodium?
Yeah, man. And I'm grown too. I'm not a youngster anymore. So I'm out here like, yo, this is nuts. Like $100. That's like a one-way trip somewhere. And I'm putting that in my gas tank just all willy-nilly. It was nuts.
It's crazy. My best friend out here in Texas, he lives like an hour and 10 minutes away. And sometimes he's like, you want to come over for a barbecue? And like, we hardly ever see each other. And it's like, nah, I'm okay. Like, that's like a 2-hour, 40-minute drive. That's like my whole tank, you know, like, like, do you got all the beer and the food? Like, because that's gonna, you know. Yeah, I digress there. So just try to stay. I like that all my areas within walking distance. I try to drive if I don't have to, and so try to go there. But speaking of not driving far, let's get into it. Wagner just driving down Highway 5 for his new destination. There stays in the NFC West in LA. I thought this was a long shot for him to come to the Niners, nor did I really think that we needed him. I thought linebacker was a pretty strong direction, but the division gets tougher. Our biggest competition in the division gets a little bit better at their worst position group, I thought, being linebacker last season. What do you make of this deal? 5 years, I think it's $50 million, upwards of 65 with incentives. We obviously don't know how it's structured, but what do you think about it, and how does that help the Rams there?
I mean, I think obviously it's a good signing for the Rams, to get the type of caliber player that Wagner is. Obviously, he's not in his prime anymore. I mean, they're probably getting tail end of his prime. If not, I mean, clearly that contract is going to go into his descension as far as greatness. But I think a lot of the fan base for 49ers are making too much about it, like making it seem like this piece puts the Rams over. I mean, it's like I looked up their depth chart, Randon, and I'm like, I couldn't even pick those two other linebackers that are going to be next to him playing for the Rams. I wouldn't even be able to pick them out of a lineup if they were the only three people on there. I wouldn't know which one is which, like, so it's like, is this going to really make big difference for the Rams? Maybe, possibly, but I don't think their three linebackers touch our three linebackers, like even with Wagner there. I mean, I would still say we're light years above it. And as far as whether or not the Niners should do it, I mean, it sounds great on paper, but if you're paying him $10 million, like it looks like a year, that's not, I mean, that type of money for what we're going to get out of him, or what we're going to, like, the difference between him and the next guy up, I really don't think it would have been that beneficial. I'd rather keep that money and put it towards something else.
It just feels like the dark side has grown within fans, right? Like Anakin Skywalker, and he's like, we could have prevented this, like I wish I could have done that. And then he just grown into Darth Vader because Jimmy Garoppolo is still on the lineup, and it's preventing us from getting moves. And we talked about on the last one, I don't think any moves have been prevented because of Jimmy Garoppolo. It's made it harder, but they've restructured deals. They've done all that kind of stuff. We went out and got a number one corner. Like, what do we Are we really that upset with the roster? I mean, I think the only other person that maybe if we wanted to really make a run, I thought Allen Robinson would have been an interesting 1 or 2 year deal, considering you probably won't be able to pay both Debo and Ayuk if Ayuk tops off this season. But, you know, like, or a premier safety like Tyrann Mathieu, but maybe Chandler Jones. So there's like less than a handful of guys that I really could have seen being like real blockbusters or backup tight end. I know we'll get to Ross Dwelly here in a bit, but yeah, this wasn't really high on my list as far as, you know, but everybody's like, oh yeah, it's going to be Bowman and P. Willis, you know, reincarnated. And it's like, you know, like, let's just move on. I don't like when fans like go back to memory lane. Like, remember back in 1975 when we had the best linebacking core? And it's like, let's just move on and move forward in what this team is, you know?
Yeah, I mean, reality is, I keep saying it, like, people, like, if you put up the blue chip players that the Rams have and the blue chip players that the 49ers have, the 49ers have more talent. Like, that's the truth, right? We aren't where we are because we didn't have enough talent at other positions. We are where we are because of a very weak quarterback room for the most part. And when Jimmy went down, the team didn't have viable backups in previous years. When Jimmy was healthy, the team won, but you know, he's not the type of quarterback to get you over the hump. That's what Trey Lance is there for. But the talent around Trey Lance is great. I like what you said about Allen Robinson. I mean, I've been putting it out there, Randon, that I think based off of the moves the 49ers have and haven't done this free agency, I would think the 49ers are drafting 2 wide receivers in this upcoming draft. I think they have something like 11 picks. So they're probably going to bunch those together, trade up a bunch of times because there's not 11 roster spots on this team, right? So I think they go after, this is supposed to be a pretty deep wide receiver draft. I could imagine them bringing in another 2 wide receivers like they did the year with Ayuk and Jennings. Obviously, those 2 worked out pretty well for the 49ers. So like you said, they have to make a decision with Ayuk in a couple years. So
yeah, I think it's an interesting situation, and 2 completely different scenarios with my LA Kings last year, but they moved up and they did quality over quantity. They took 4 guys instead of the 8 picks that they had. They traded up, moved up, and got different guys because their prospect pool was super deep. Now, there's no prospect pool in football, but the Niners are really deep. And so instead of taking 11 guys and throwing dart throws everywhere, like, I know the track record of moving up hasn't really been that great with some of the picks that they've made, but the concept is still right? You know, move up and get higher quality players that have a higher chance of starting right away instead of just making all 11 picks. Like, move up and be aggressive and try to get some impact starters instead of just throwing a bunch of dart throws.
Yeah, I just really think that the 49ers are built not only to compete at a high level year after year, but for a very long time. And, you know, I think the fan base, and I get it, the fan base has been so starved. Like, I've seen the 49ers win a championship. I was, you know, of a certain age where I remember watching Steve Young throw 6 touchdowns against the Chargers in that Super Bowl. And I know there's a fan base that hasn't ever seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl, and they're just like, whatever it takes to get that one Super Bowl. But you know, would you want to be the Eagles? Right? The Eagles won a Super Bowl a few years ago. Is anybody thinking, like, does anybody remember that? Like, does anybody look at the Eagles team as a contending team? You win that one, but then you fall off.
Eagles fans probably remember it.
Possibly, but is that exciting? Like, oh, we won it that one year, and then you're trashed the rest of the years, and it's like you just always trying to get. Or do you want a team that could win a Super Bowl and continue to be competitive, like the Chiefs, like the Patriots used to be, like, you know, Tampa, possibly the Rams? You know, like, we'll see what the Rams are able to do this season. Obviously, a lot of people are putting them as one of the top 3, but guess what? The 49ers are part of the top 3 in the NFC East, NFC as well. So
I would take a decade of losing for one championship over a decade of making the playoffs.
Okay, well, I mean, I can tell you that I've seen the 49ers win a Super Bowl, and this decade of losing after 2 decades of losing afterwards isn't very fun, Randon. So it's not like so.
Let me get that one, okay?
I could guarantee you, after years and years of just like not even being close, and little bit sprinkles here and there, consistency is key as well. And I think that the 49ers are on the brink of becoming a dynasty in the NFC with the right coaching staff, with the right quarterback, with the right philosophy in how they bring players in, what they do with contracts and stuff. Very reminiscent of how New England built their dynasty. So I think that the 49er fans just need to be a little bit patient, and they're going to be well rewarded for that patience in the years to come.
It's just such a what have you done for me lately atmosphere on Twitter and in sports now, and with everywhere everywhere you can get content, and so they want that splash play. And I don't think the Ward signing is getting enough headlines as it should be in the Niners Twitterverse for what our team could be and all that. So
even all the special team signings, Brandon, like this team lost 5 games last regular season by one score. And think about how weak our special teams was last year. To see what a much better special teams can do as far as field position and making those drives shorter for a guy like Trey, that could be the difference between winning and being the number 1 seed and not even making the playoffs, right? And we lost to the Rams by a field goal, right? If we had better special teams, if we had a better quarterback, that could be a completely different game. And we got all of those things this offseason. So, I think we just got to the season just needs to start, because right now it's all about what could have, what should have, and everybody's projecting. We just need to see the product on the field before we could start like making these emotional statements.
Yeah, so Real is advocating for taking a kicker at 61 and cutting Robbie Gould to solidify the special teams. Let's go to a positive here, or maybe not, depending on your juice. Fully stocked is this topic. The Niners pick up his options now. Obviously, he's a very dynamic player. I thought I saw something on Twitter today that he's one of like 6 guys that has made the Pro Bowl the last 6 seasons.
Right.
Obviously, there's only like 3 fullbacks in the league, so he's definitely the best one. But he is a weapon, a Swiss Army knife, so to speak. Good guy, quality player. What do you think of them picking up these options for him? And do you think that they utilize him enough for what he's getting paid on the field?
Yeah, I mean, clearly for the type of offense that Shanahan runs, Juice is like the perfect fullback for that. I'm never somebody that like, I want players to get the bag as much as possible. So I'm never opposed to paying a guy, but I would like to see him utilized more, Randon. I mean, I think he could do a lot more than what the team asks of him. He's pretty good at pass catching. He's pretty, he in spot duty when he's running the ball, he does pretty well as well. Obviously, he's there because of his blocking prowess, but yeah, use him in a little more gadget plays. Use him a little bit more where it's not just like completely blatant, like on 4th and 2 or 4th and 1 or whatever they did when that play got blowed up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good pick. He's he's the best player for that role in the league. Why mess around? Like, it's such an important role. He knows how to play it. He loves being in San Francisco. The team loves him. He's a fan favorite. Makes a lot of sense to just keep him there.
Yeah, I would have. I'm going to go the different route here, and I think as far as they're paying people too much for positions that don't get utilized enough, and for him to make 6.5, then 7.5, and then $7.5 million at 33 and 34 years old for a fullback is asinine. And they could have cut him for a $2.5 million dead cap, re-sign him for cheaper. And he still got his money and everything like that. Chances are that he wouldn't have left. But that's like $7.5 million for a fullback is ridiculous. I know that they do have extensions with Debo and Bosa coming up. But if he's getting paid $7.5 million, he better be on the field for like 80% of snaps, 500 yards receiving. Like they need to utilize him a lot more to justify that money, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully with a guy like Trey, being the new starter or whatnot. I know we're going to get into that topic later on, but I do think that there's going to be more opportunities for guys to see their numbers go up and their utilization go up. So, yeah, I mean, I think Juice can be somebody who may see his numbers bolster with a stronger arm there.
Yeah, somebody was asked this question, and I think it's kind of interesting. Is what do you think Juice would be ranked in the league as a tight end if he played it full time?
It's tough to say, right? I mean, because he's not really lining up as a tight end. He's kind of just like sneaking out of the backfield. So he's open a lot more than I would think a normal tight end would be, and based off of the way he's schemed and stuff like that. But I mean, look, he's obviously a great blocker. He's very smart, high IQ player, and has good hands. So I would imagine he would put on a little bit more size probably if he was going to play tight end full time. But I think he would be serviceable. Like, I mean, I would say he would probably be in the top half of the tight ends versus the bottom half.
Yeah, it'd definitely be something that would be interesting, and maybe they utilize him more as tight end too. Not to take anything away from this guy, no need to dwell. Ross Dwelley gets a 1-year deal back with the team there, and to be the tight end too with him and Warner and our main man Kittle. So maybe they're planning on using Juszczyk and have kind of like a 4 tight end room. You saw them bring in guys for the practice squad last year, and so maybe they're just saying, "Hey, Juice, we're going to utilize you more in different spots." But Ross Dwelley, what do you think of this signing? Is it nothing but a depth signing? Should they utilize him more because he stepped up big when Kittle was down?
I mean, this was the best you could get for the amount of money that was left over, right? So, I mean, backup tight ends we're getting anywhere from like $3 to $5 million per year. So you're getting Dwelley for like the bottom of the barrel kind of pricing. So he already knows the offense. He's been with the team. It's a 1-year deal. They need some backups. And, like, do you utilize Dwelley more? I mean, I think Shanahan is Shanahan. I don't know how much he believes in Dwelley in the sense that it doesn't seem like he force feeds Dwelley the ball that much. He's just there whenever, Kittle goes down or, they need to give Kittle a break. I don't know if he's going to be utilized more. I think that they have a lot of weapons on this team, and, Dwelley isn't necessarily the top of my list as far as what those weapons are.
Yeah, I don't really expect him to get. There's a lot of mouths to feed, and so if he gets 10 to 15 catches for a little over 70 to 100 yards, I'd be fine with that, and maybe a touchdown here or there. Some jumbo packages around the goal line, so something there. Do you think that they need to utilize maybe one of their late round picks on the tight end and try to keep that position group cheap, considering that Kittle's salary is going to be going up the next couple seasons?
I think you could bank. If there's a bet in Vegas that the 49ers would take a tight end, I'd take that bet because they're only signing him for a 1-year deal. They clearly don't have a solution back behind Kittle when it comes to the tight end room. They're going to go on the draft and get it. And there's a lot of tight ends to be had in, those later rounds. And obviously they've popped on Kittle in a later round pick. So, maybe, I don't know if they'll get somebody the caliber of Kittle, but they could get a really decent player that, they could develop behind Kittle and, maybe be the heir apparent whenever Kittle goes into the sunset.
Yeah, they just need a little bit less of a gap between Kittle and the next guy up, just, and to where the fall off isn't as much and you still remain cheap because of the fact that he's on a rookie deal. So let's talk to another guy that could get paid here. He has some comments from Kyle Shanahan and quote, I don't think we're working on it yet, talking about his extension, but I'm really happy with Juwan and I hope that we can keep him here. I thought he came in real hard last year, halfway through the season, finished strong. What he did in the playoffs for us, Juwan's got to come in right where he left off and keep getting better. It took him a little bit getting into last year, especially starting out with COVID and missing some time out of training camp. But Juwan's got the skill set that we like, and the way he plays, the style he plays with, we really like. I'm excited about Juwan. What do these quotes really mean from you or mean to you from Shanahan? And then, like, how do you envision him fitting into this receiver room next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the bona fide wide receiver 3, just like you put up on the screen. I mean, for a 7th-round pick, what he was able to do at the tail end of the season was amazing. You know, he has this nasty streak about him when it comes to blocking, which I think the team just eats off of. Like he electrifies it, with his
Kyle loves
blocking.
it.
Yeah, Kyle loves it. The players love it. You saw Brandon Ayuk starting to block even harder when he saw what Jennings doing, and then Jennings is turning into a third down safety blanket. He was for Jimmy. He has strong hands. He's obviously has a big body. I could see, I would love to see him still be, that third down back that could be there, and maybe even a more of a goal line threat. I think with his big body and strong hands and stuff like that, I could see him utilized a lot. And he doesn't seem like a guy. I mean, he's a 7th-round pick, so he's not somebody who expects the ball in his hands all the time, which clearly in this type of offense probably is good. Like that he can still be productive on the field without necessarily needing the ball in his hands through his blocking and so on and so forth. So I love him. I think, he needs another year to show before the team really invests long-term money into him. But if he comes and shows out again this season, I could see him here being a 49er for another 2-3 years.
Yeah, I think I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I remember him being something along the lines of anywhere. I think it was like 70 to 80% of his catches were either first downs or touchdowns. And so, like when you're the third or fourth option on the field, sometimes you get lost, or you're going against the weakest opponent on the other side, and you really need to take advantage of that opportunity. And so Jennings is going to be big, and you see some of the third wide receivers like Van Jefferson for the Rams get roughly 800 yards in a season. That really can vault your whole team up into the next level there. And so I think it's huge to have that kind of impact that you can have. Now, let me ask you this. If he has another big season this year or a bigger season, do we get priced out like we did with Kendrick Bourne?
Probably.
And then you have to start over. So would you rather take that chance, or would you rather sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal now for cheaper, because it would be cheaper to go at this moment, or just say, hey, we got Ayuk and Debo, and we're just going to continue throwing dart throws in the draft for our 3 through 5s to keep it cheap?
Yeah, because I mean, you're talking about, like you said, fourth option at best. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle are going to be the top 3 in whatever order you put them in. And then, maybe Jennings, but maybe one of these running backs starts becoming more of an option with Anthony Lynn there. He likes throwing the ball out of the backfield a lot more to the running backs. So I think for as much as I love Jennings, when it comes to wide receivers, we got him in the 7th round. I think if they just draft 2 wide receivers every single year, they'll be able to replace that. So if I am putting assets somewhere, I think wide receiver is somewhere that could be replaced, unless you're like even superstars, but like a Debo and Ayuk, I'd save the money for them more than a Jennings.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at there's usually a wide receiver every single year that makes impact in the later rounds, Terry McLaurin in the 3rd round, and so on. Not saying that you're going to get a superstar out of the late picks, but all you need is a wide receiver 3. If you're relying on Ayuk to Debo to be superstars going forward, all you need is a wide receiver 3, and take those dart throws. And eventually, with all these record-setting contracts that they're giving out, and if Trey Lance is the guy that everybody thinks he is, he's going to be making good money. They're going to have to hit on these picks and be okay with letting these guys go, and not signing everybody, because you can't do that and remain effective.
Right.
Speaking of money, let's take it to the banks here. We're talking about Aaron Banks, and obviously they haven't made a big push to get any big guards in there. They let Tomlinson go. Obviously, they weren't going to pay him that that big money thing. But Kyle talked about him at these owner meetings as well, saying the way Banks finished last year, he was ready to go. We almost made the move to put him in for the second half of the season, but we kind of went on this win streak, and we were gelling really good as a team. If you had asked me halfway through the season if he was going to be playing, I would have said yes. And things just started clicking for our team, and we didn't want to change it up or mess it up. But he's ready to go. Do you interpret this as Banks sitting right next to the Silverback there as the left guard to start the season?
100%. They have to. And I mean, the story of Trey Lance is very probably the same story as Aaron Banks, right? So Kyle Shanahan, and we're obviously talking about that soon, but obviously the same type of stuff Kyle Shanahan was saying with Trey is very similar to what he's saying with Aaron Banks. He could be ready. We were thinking about playing him, but our team was just on too much of a streak to really change things up too drastically. But I don't think that takes away from how much confidence he has in these players or their ability to step into their new roles that they're going to have now. And the fact that they let Tomlinson walk, I think they have to be confident. Like it's not like Randon, there's not some good players still out there in free agency, but they're not making any moves to sign these guys. So they're obviously not scared. They know that this team is built in the trenches and the offensive line is extremely important to their success. And I think a lot of what we saw from Aaron Banks was him having to play out of his natural position, moving him from right guard to from left guard to right guard. Now that he's going to be on the left side where he's more comfortable in between the best left tackle in the game and one of the top performing centers, he's set up for success. And if he hits, this offense, that left side of the offensive line is going to be very good for a long time.
I don't even think he has to hit like 70 to 80% of what Tomlinson was for us because he's making $1.6 million. Like he's making a tenth or a little, of what Tomlinson's going to be playing. And so that's where you get effective. That's why the rookie contract for the quarterback is the most valued possession in football. And it's going to matter for other positions as well. And so if Banks can get a moderate amount of success out of that spot for that cheap, they're going to be successful. And it's going to be something that can benefit the Niners going forward.
Yeah. And I mean, I would like for him to be solid because that right side of the line is, the offense changed and started playing a lot better the minute that they switched everything to go left, right? Everything was behind Tomlinson and Williams. And, the right side of the line is still a big question mark. We don't know how healthy McGlinchey's going to be. Obviously, Brunskill is an up and down player. So I would want Banks to be somewhat of a stalwart because we do need one side of that field to be dominant so that the running game could, run through it. Right. So, yeah, I think we do need Banks to step up more than just 70% of Lakin. He does need to be a second round draft pick that, that type of caliber of player for this team to move forward.
Yeah, I was just saying in regards to the salary of how it would be effective because you're allocating stuff elsewhere. But if you think about it long term or play some crystal ball action here, if they get another interior offensive lineman in this draft, say a center, and then you're getting cheap not only at left guard, center, and both those guys are effective, you're getting extreme value across the offensive line for relatively nothing. And then that pushes into the late years of Trent Williams' contract to where then you're almost making a switch, right? Because Trent Williams is going to be towards the tail end of his. Those guys are going to be at the end of their rookie deals. And then maybe you draft a nice tackle and kind of start allocating that salary in a different location. So I do agree with you that I think that Banks is a key component to the success of the Niners next season. I just from a salary standpoint, his effectiveness doesn't need to be quite as a stalwart, but for the success of us winning a Super Bowl, you're definitely right that he needs to take it to the bank, as we say.
I like that.
So the key to the defensive line, Arden Key leaves us to go to the Jags. He got the key to the kingdom here with his $8 million deal, I believe, right? $8 million or $7 million.
I think it's 7, yeah.
Way more than what the Niners, I believe, were offering him. So he went and got the bag there in a situation. One, do you think he made the right decision by maybe not playing for the Niners this year, bolstering his stock and maybe signing a 2, 3, or 4-year deal? And then how does the defensive line look without him in it?
Yeah, I mean, to answer your first question, yeah, I do think that he made a mistake because if he strung together 2 seasons like he did last year and he did another year on top of that under Kosaric, obviously who makes what turns the water into wine when it comes to these defensive linemen, I think, we just saw what happened with Hyder, right? Hyder goes out. He has a big year with the Niners, goes to Seattle, and 1 year later, where is he? Right back with the 49ers on a minimum deal, right? So I think not only for his brand, but also the skill and the technique, and maybe making him a better player. And Key is young. Like, it's not like he's, that old. I think he's 27, 28, something around there.
I think less than
So
that,
yeah, maybe even younger than that. So if he went out and had another solid year, I definitely could see him getting more of what DJ Jones got versus maybe not as high as DJ Jones, but at least, more long-term plus guaranteed money. He's on a 1-year deal. But I think the 49ers just know their strength with the defensive line and what they have with Kostrik. Unless you're a Nick Bosa or Eric Armstead, you're not going to get big money on the defensive line from these guys. They know they could just sign these 1-year prove-it guys that are very athletic and have them have their biggest season with the 49ers, and they'll constantly just be rotating these guys around. Defensive lines know, if I want to get paid, let me go play for the Niners for a year or two, and I could go make big money in free agency, after that.
I don't know if he's signed yet because it just came out of the top of my mind, but Dante Fowler, if he's still unsigned, former top 5 pick, and if he wants to sign a cheap deal and try to get back up into the tens of millions, it'd be interesting to see him sign with the Niners. I think that I'm going to play devil's advocate real quick and just talk about why it was a positive decision, right? Because you're looking at the Jaguars have a really high pick. Maybe they go Hutchinson, or maybe they go defensive end with their second round pick. We all saw how the defensive line just totally went to a different stratosphere with Nick Bosa. Obviously, they had DeForest Buckner and Armstead as well, a plethora of first-round picks, which isn't as apparent on the Jaguars. But also, he's going to get more playing time, right? That left side defensive end is a cavalcade of guys that are all looking to do the same things that Art and Key are doing by getting paid big money, and Amenahue and Ebukam and all this kind of stuff like that going forward. And so maybe the opportunity lends him to get a better season in sacks because he's the guy over there rather than being one of many in a stable.
Well, I think if he decided and told the team he would come back, I don't think we see those other guys getting signed, right? So I think that was more of a product of he was wanting to go shop himself out there, and they realized that, he's looking for big money and they're not going to pay big money when they could get similar production out of the vet men.
They do. I think they do need to address edge, or at least take a shot at edge.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to force it at 61, but take a shot at it, because all these people on 1-2-year deals, it'd be nice to get a quality controlled guy for four seasons. To really see what Kosura could do long term for a guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think they will. I've been mentioning it. I think with that second round pick, they're going to go BPA at specific positions like they usually do, and I think it's going to be edge, safety, or wide receiver are the 3 positions that I think they'll look at that second round pick.
So I asked my man Rob Shue from Between Two Beers last night this question. Maybe you might give a different answer. And so if the Niners say are at 61 and a guy of a non-need position, say like linebacker, falls to them at 61, but they have a first-round grade on this guy, do they truly go best player available, or do you still think they need to address a position at 61?
What do I think they should do, or what do I think they will do?
What do you think they should do?
If it's linebacker, I would probably say no, because where's that guy going to play? It depends. Is he another middle linebacker? Because he's not taking Fred Warner's, spot. And, so I don't know, maybe, but let's say it's not linebacker, because linebacker, they're obviously stacked at. Let's say it's a corner, or let's say it's a wide receiver or something like that. I think they should take him, because I don't think that there's glaring needs outside of maybe safety. Like, say it depends, man. So if they could bring back Tart on a 1-year deal or something like that, then I think, yeah, do it. But if there's a safety that you are really high on, but there's a first-round grade somewhere else, I just don't think there's that many starting positions on this team, right? Now, I think my confusion doesn't really matter, because the 49ers regime just showed that they won't do it, right? So they're going to reach in the first round. Their higher pick, where they generally go best player available is their later round picks. And that's where they just find gems, right? Because they do that. But with their higher round picks, it seems like they go after need. And I believe edge, safety, wide receiver are going to be what they look at as far as what those needs are.
I would, if it was a linebacker, I would take him. Just because I look at it this way, and I brought this up because there's been a couple interviews, and scouting is similar in all sports. But Mark Yannetti, the head scout for the LA Kings, talked about how they approach the draft within like putting everybody into tiers, right? And if the guy is in a non-position of need, but he's in a higher tier, you take that guy because you can always make adjustments after the fact, right? So you could always trade Aziz. You could he had over 100 tackles, like. You could probably get a third rounder for Aziz right now. And so then, you're taking a second round pick there. You get a third round pick for Aziz. And then you keep a guy who's injured in Greenlaw, who's probably not going to make as much money on it with Aziz. And you have 3 solid linebackers, and you have a quality controlled guy for 4 seasons with a first round grade. And so I think that within reason, I mean, obviously I wouldn't be taking a quarterback. I wouldn't be taking a kicker or a punter in that aspect. But for the most part, I'd be taking, or maybe not running back either, just because the fact that I think drafting a running back that high is not the best thing for a team. But outside of those few glaring instances, I wouldn't care if they took a corner or a linebacker or even a tackle, because you don't know what's going on with McGlinchey, but he's there. So there's a couple positions there, and then you kind of adjust on the fly. It's an interesting thing because he talked about drafting for need and how that gets you pigeonholed, because you don't know how certain guys are going to progress or how your team is. And now these guys, they're drafting guys at 17. Obviously, you're getting a little bit more development with football players in college.
Right.
But it's an interesting concept of how to break it down into tiers and really go for BPA no matter what, and just getting the guy that can make the highest impact on your team because he has the highest ceiling. Because if you get an all-pro guy, I mean, and the biggest example of this last season was the Dallas Cowboys, right? Mm-hmm. So they had a first-round pick in Van Der Esch. They had another linebacker making over, I believe, $10 million. And so it wasn't a glaring need for them, but they took BPA and Micah Parsons, and he definitely transformed that defense and was Defensive Rookie Player of the Year.
Yeah, I just think that the 49ers, after 6 years into this regime, kind of know where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And they just so wherever your weaknesses are, I think you need to put in more higher talent, right? So like you said, with running back, it would be even if you got Saquon Barkley that dropped, right? How would you pick him knowing that you could get a 6th round pick that goes out and breaks every single rookie record for the 49ers? That doesn't seem like the smartest move. I think just with the linebackers, we're just talking specifically linebacker. Fred Warner's a 3rd round draft pick. Greenlaw is a 5th round draft pick, and Aziz was an undrafted free agent. So it's when you're getting, and this is one of the most elite linebacking cores in the league right now. But where you need that talent is another edge probably, or another safety, or like you said, offensive line. I'd rather get higher talent there versus that. But I mean, it's a good argument. Obviously, nobody's complaining in Dallas that they have Micah Parsons, but what did that necessarily do as far as getting them closer to the Super Bowl? Not much. They ended up in the same place as well.
They went from the worst defense of all time to moderately good.
Right. so I mean, and I think
pretty big jump.
I mean, Micah was part of it, but Diggs played a big, there was other talent there that helped that out. It wasn't just one player that changed everything.
Let's move it on to, you can't do a Niners podcast without talking a little bit of quarterbacks of this day and age. And so, this segment is called Lynch Stuck or Stubborn. And so his comments about the most, about trading Jimmy, he said, obviously there's a lot of questions. Well, what does this mean for Trey? The great news is that we're extremely positive, as I've said, and as Kyle's has said, on Trey's progress. This offseason, he will have ample opportunity. Jimmy won't be ready until training camp, and Trey will have ample opportunity, as will Nate, to get plenty of reps. And we're looking forward to the process. We hold on to Garoppolo because we know what he can do. We know what he means to us. And it's not to say that talks won't pick up again. So is this John Lynch being stuck in a situation that he's in because of Jimmy's injury, or is it being stubborn in the fact that what he believes that he can get out of this trade?
I mean, I know this is a cop-out answer, but I think it's a little bit of both. I
All right.
think
Well, it was
that
nice doing the episode with you.
I think that if there wasn't that surgery, I don't think we're having this discussion. I think Jimmy's traded. And I
Fair.
think everything that they've said is pretty much aligned with that. I don't think anything I'm hearing is nothing but posturing as far as they want Jimmy back on this team. I think you can tell from the moves they've made with, the quarterback coach and how Shanahan's talking about Trey now versus how he talked about him last season. This is definitely Trey's team. And I think they just don't want to trade a guy who took them to 2 NFC championships and a Super Bowl in the last 3 years and get nothing for him. Like, I think that's just what their mentality is. And, I know a lot of the fan base is like, the more of the, oh, this is stubborn and, criminal and he should be fired. I'd be like, all right, relax a little bit. This team is still very, very good. This team is the best team that we've had in quite a long time as far as performance wise. I think it's just a tough situation. I don't think they expected Jimmy to have that surgery. And I think that played a big role. And how many times did they talk about the shoulder, especially Kyle Shanahan, about the shoulder injury, the shoulder surgery? Like, he basically said it, like, Jimmy would be traded if it wasn't for the shoulder surgery. We need to be able to show that shoulder is strong, and then they're going to be able to trade him. And that's, I think, where it's at right now.
Yeah, I still think there's a wide range of outcomes, from getting the picks that you want and freeing up the cap soon enough to where you could still roll over that money to next season.
Right.
That's an outcome. And then there's also an outcome where they are stubborn and keep Jimmy on the roster for $27 million as a backup and are not able to trade him by the trade deadline. Trey balls out and you have a $27 million backup all season long. I mean, that's an outcome too. I think it might land somewhere in the middle. I don't think they get 2 seconds because they said that wasn't a true report now, or at least the rumor is that they said that wasn't a true report. So I think they probably get a third or something like that. But there's teams out there that are taking gambles, right? Maybe the Panthers get into camp. Sam Darnold looks garbage as he always does, and then the pressure's a little bit more to make that deal. Maybe the Steelers say, "Hey, Mitch Trubisky was cheaper and less risk, but in camp he looks garbage, and we need to go out and make a trade." And Trubisky goes back in that deal, and we save some cap and get a backup for a cheaper amount. So, there's all kinds of outcomes that could possibly happen. A guy gets injured, getting out of bed, and they get the Sam Bradford treatment and hold some team ransom that is playoff bound. So there's still a lot of wide things going on. I think that fans see his salary like, oh, like we could have went out and got a smorgasbord of talent and really just balled out this year. But if he still gets traded early enough, that 27 million could be rolled into next season, and then we have 50 million or something in cap going into next year. Cap raises even more, and they can spend on some free agents next season. I don't think it's necessarily needed to be right now. What's up, Aruna? Thank you for joining us in the chat there.
And not only next season, Rand, and even this season, right? So many people are talking about what the Rams did, but most of their talent was brought in mid-season, right? Von Miller, OBJ. These are guys that were not during free agency or anything like that. They did the one bit major pickup, obviously Stafford upgrading their quarterback position, but mid-season is there. And I think the 49ers in 2019 have shown that if they see themselves, close to and being competitive, that they'll go out and make the move like they did for Emmanuel Sanders in that 2019 Super Bowl run. They were like 8-0 and they went out and got Emmanuel Sanders. So if there's, an edge that say they don't hit on the edge in the draft and there's somebody that is out there on a 1-year deal from a team and, a team that's not necessarily performing that's available, they've shown that they'll go out and trade for that guy. And if they have that cap space, maybe even extend them and keep them with the team. So I think that the team still has a lot of tricks up their sleeve. I think there's just not a lot going on right now as far as football being played. So people are trying to win it based off of on paper, but we know that paper isn't what wins championships, you know?
Yeah, when you're in the holding pattern or you're sitting there on the tarmac, it's always nerve-wracking, more nerve-wracking than the flight. And so, like you said, I think when the draft starts getting close, which is in a couple weeks, and then, all the camp stuff comes out and people are seeing highlights of, Trey doing backflips and throwing it 60 yards downfield and stuff like that. Like, people are going to be less concerned. And like I said, there's still a lot of football, we talked about last program, the Sam Darnold option of them switching that up. There's quarterbacks out there that get injured all the time. What if Wentz gets injured, or what if like they're under the gun there? Like you said, for an edge, Jimmy Garoppolo for Montez Sweat. You could do something along those lines, and for a 1-year deal. And so we'll see how that works out. I think there's teams, quarterbacks get injured almost every single season, at least one. Hopefully for us. Not hopefully for the player, because you don't wish injury upon anybody, but hopefully for us, it's a playoff team. So that makes it more appealing for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right.
And I wouldn't even be mad if they traded him to Seattle, to be honest with you, just to free up the money. But
right.
Let's move it on here to the 3 good QBs. And so let's talk about, Shanahan on Jimmy and Trey. And he said, that's why we looked into trading Jimmy, Shanahan had said Tuesday. We're obviously believing Trey that he can be a starter, and we're ready to do that, not just getting rid of a good quarterback because we have other quarterbacks on the roster. Quarterbacks are really hard to come by, and some teams don't have any at all. And the fact that we have 3, we're happy with, and it's a good thing. And so my question for this is, obviously it points to Lance, and we'll get to that as him being the starter. But do you think that they overvalue sometimes their players, especially the quarterbacks, with Jimmy Garoppolo in this situation, the CJ Beathard and Nick Mullins situation, or are they just kind of pumping the tires for Sudfeld because that's what coach speak is?
Yeah, once again, I'm going to cop out and say a little bit of both, because they definitely overvalued Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. I don't think that they're overvaluing the need for having good quarterbacks, because clearly that's been the biggest Achilles heel for this team, right? So having a viable backup there, is that Nate Sudfeld? That's a big question mark for me. I think he's closer to Mullins and CJ Beathard than he would be to a Jimmy or Trey. So I'm still a little hesitant. When Jimmy does get traded, I do believe he should get traded, but I don't know if Nate Sudfeld is that guy. And, if Trey goes down for a meaningful period of time, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen. Is Nate Sudfeld going to be the guy that can carry this team in his absence to keep them competitive? I don't know. He hasn't anywhere else, right? So yeah, I mean, I do think that they mean it when they say they're not just going to cut a quarterback just because they have other quarterbacks, because they know how valuable the quarterback position is. And, we act like Jimmy gets cut. There's at least 10 teams that would go pick him up on their roster in a heartbeat. I don't think he's going to be out of work for that long. Even injured, Brandon. So he's obviously shown that he's been successful everywhere he's gone. So yeah, I mean, why would they at this point? Like I said, I think people are more angry that the 49ers aren't looking to spend a lot of money or bring in these bigger names like they see some of these other teams like the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Rams done, more than even Jimmy being on the roster. I think it's just that the team isn't out there. They're not like, oh, we got Tyrann Mathieu, or, oh, we got Chandler. That's what they want to be saying, rather than we got Charvarius Ward and Ray McLeod. Like, when those are going to be guys that make meaningful impact on the team as well. So,
yeah, I mean, when you're a team that is like you think that we are, is in the beginning of a dynasty here, you lose players. You just do, and you're not always able to sign it. You saw the Chiefs lose an All-Pro and Tyreek Hill because they couldn't get his contract to fit under everything, and he left, and they re-signed somebody for a little bit cheaper. You see New England do it in their heyday all the time, and that was with Tom Brady taking discounts. They were letting players walk and refilling the cupboard with cheaper talent. And so you can't always go out there and sign, I wouldn't want them to go out there and sign Von Miller for 80 million. Like it just, and so like it can't always happen. You have to believe in the talent and you have to build through the draft to remain relevant because you can only pay so many guys.
And luckily for us, this team has started getting better at drafting. Definitely their first round of 2017 might have been their worst draft ever, but like, they've been able to get impact players every single year through the draft. So that's bodes well for any 49er fan.
Yeah, before we get to our last topic, please smash that like button down in there and subscribe. So Real Sunil right here has all his stuff there in the description. So go subscribe to his channel as well, putting out great content. Let's get to the last one here. Trey as the starter. You're looking at what they've said with, how they feel about him. We talked about a little bit in the Banks topic as well. Thinking that if they didn't make that run in the mid part of the season, would Trey have gotten in for 6 or 7 games? And so viewing based on the comments of Kyle and John, do you believe that he's the starter and they're telling him that behind closed doors and they're just waiting for Jimmy to get traded to do that in the media? You think they believe in him, starting right out the gate?
Yeah, I agree. I think that he's the bona fide starter. I think Kyle Shanahan basically said it without actually saying the words. You don't sit there in an owners meeting and being like, yeah, that's why we were cool with trading Jimmy. Like, that's like, if you're over here thinking Jimmy has any shot at being the starting quarterback for you, you're not over here talking in an owners meeting about, yeah, that's why we're comfortable trading Jimmy. Like, that mixed in with what he said about the quarterback coach and Brian Griese, as far as why they brought him in, it's clearly to help out Trey. The things that Kyle Shanahan was talking about with Griese, his ability to, game plan for games, how to deal with the media, how to deal with throwing a pick and still, being able to like keep your head in the game, all that kind of stuff. It was all geared towards Trey. Anthony Lynn, I think, even is geared towards Trey. Like everything that they've done this offseason seems to be geared towards Trey. Jimmy isn't even going to be healthy, even if he was going to stay on this roster. And Trey, we're seeing so much footage of him, practicing and working out. And I know a lot of people are in Twitter fandom or 49ers Twitter, like another practice. Like, yeah, I mean, it's exciting to see him like hit some of these throws and, the what he's been able to do. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's very clear that barring injury, he's the starter.
I agree, and I think that he should be there. I mean, you went up and traded for him. You got to see what the kid's going to do. You got to take advantage of this contract and take the lumps, and that's what it's going to be. I think the only thing they haven't done to put Trey in the best position to succeed this year is moving Jimmy earlier. And like you said, that could have been fully because of the injury, because then they could have utilized that money to bring in a legit wide receiver 3 or a tight end 2, or bonafide the right guard spot and have Banks and everybody there. And so those are situations that could have happened, but that's not what it is. And they can still make adjustments mid-season, like you talked about. But I think going forward, Trey is going to be that guy. You see Ayuk working out with him already. He was out there with the guy that got drafted before him, working on drills.
Zach Wilson.
Working on drills and stuff like that. And putting yourself around talented people is only going to make you more talented. And I know people are going to hate me for that, but Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick for a reason. Like they could still trade secrets. And what did you see in your rookie season? You played for the Jets. You obviously had a really rough season. Like, how did you deal with all the criticism of being in a huge market like New York? Like there's tons of stuff that they can still talk about and learn from each other, regardless of how that season went. And the fact that Ayuk is really making an effort to develop that relationship. You saw how much Cooper Kupp went out of his way with Stafford to make him feel wanted and develop that relationship, like meeting him for breakfast every day and doing all that kind of stuff. And he had the best season by a wide receiver that I've seen in a long time. So, developing that chemistry is something that needs to happen. And I think that's good for Ayuk to do this so early in the offseason.
It's exciting to see.
It's exciting to see as it is, man. So, Man, we're gonna have plenty more time to talk quarterbacks, man. Pleasure for you to come on. Always so real, Sunil. And tell everybody what you got going on. Who'd you have on this week, and what videos to go check out.
Yeah, I mean, I only was able to do one stream on my channel this week with Coach Noah Johnston. We spoke a lot yesterday, so go check out that video if you have some time. I was on with Jesse on his channel and Jack on his channel as well this week, and I might go live tomorrow. Just chop it up with whomever's around at night and just talk shop with 49ers and stuff like that. But yeah, if you haven't already, I would love for you guys to go subscribe to my channel and help us grow. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't already, subscribe right here because Randon definitely is about to do some big things, I think.
Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Hey, you're just doing some away games this week. That's all. The home games will come, and next week I got some home games coming up. You got to have a good road record sometimes. So
exactly.
Appreciate you coming on. Again, all his stuff is in the description where you can find him. His Twitter handle is right there. Follow him on the Twitskis to see when he's going live. All my information's up in the top. Let's go Niners, man. Let's go Niners.
Let's go.